So, and I'm going to answer your question about real love in a minute. But I want to do this cult situation thing. I have not heard of a cult until I moved to LA and I started hearing about it. I would hear church members calling other preachers that, but I never heard a cult leader say he is a cult leader. Praise God, I'm a cult leader, right? I never heard that, but I always hear other people say it. And then I saw the Jim Jones thing happen, and then people had drank the Kool-Aid and they died, they did. And and the people still were blaming Jim Jones, right? And so what I noticed is that when I was growing up, and I can honestly tell you this, when I was growing up, I did not know while growing up that you could have another man be your leader. I did not know that. Because even with the preachers at the church that we went to, and we went to church like twice a month. We didn't have church service every Sunday. And if you wanted to go to church every Sunday, you would have to go to somebody else's church. Because at my church, it was just, and most churches were like that in Alabama at the time. But I didn't know you had a leader, because even with the preachers at the time, they didn't call them pastor and all that stuff. They didn't put him on a pedestal. He was just a regular person that we would go and they would teach the Bible to you and all that kind of stuff. And so it wasn't until I moved to LA and I started hearing about leaders. Black people have leaders, they have civil rights leaders, they have leaders. And then I definitely didn't know that a man would have another man over him. Because growing up, my grandfather never had another man over him. My father didn't have one. And not that they didn't work for other men, but they never saw them as a leader. They just saw, you work together, you get things done, but you never put someone over you. And so I didn't know this thing. I didn't know how cults came about. And so, but since doing Barn over the last 30 years, I have been called that. And I've been wondering, how am I a cult leader? Because if I was doing it, I didn't know I was doing it. And so, but I noticed that adult people, men and women, would say it, but they were only said if they got mad about something. It's the point I think one of you were making. They became emotional. And looked like in the emotional state, the adults were not able to take responsibility for their own action. It's like they have to blame somebody else instead of saying, you know what, I'm to blame for whatever it may be. Whether it's breaking up with some girl or listening to the preacher or whatever it is, right? And I have to take responsibility. I'm wrong. And I want to tell you that it's weird seeing it, but now I'm starting to understand it more because I'm paying more attention to it. I hear it a lot, so it got my attention. And if you ever want to understand something, get to know yourself. Really, you will know the truth of what's going on. It will be revealed to you. And so I'm starting to understand it is because of their emotions. They are in a fallen state. And the ego, even with adult people, the ego doesn't want to admit that it's wrong. It don't matter, even if they know they're in the situation themselves, doesn't matter the age. It's hard for the ego to say, I'm wrong for this. It's me. The one thing I can absolutely tell you, when I was in a fallen state, I knew I was wrong for being in a fallen state, but I didn't know how I got there, because I remember saying, I don't ever remember sinning. My life wasn't so happy, and one day I'm walking down the road and I'm deciding, I want to be a sinner. I didn't know how that happened, but I knew that things were not working well, but I didn't blame anyone else for it. And I know that I got to do a quick experiment to make this point, I think. Joel, can you come up here for a minute? So I always knew I was wrong in the fallen state. I just didn't know how to overcome it. And I would go to different churches and I would ask the preacher, I'm weak. I have fear. I have this. How do I get over it? And they would just say, well, read the Bible more or pray in tongues, something dumb. Whatever they say. They had no real answer as to, here's what you have to do to overcome it, right? And so time went by, and so I finally asked God to let me see myself, because I realized I didn't know myself. And so it was so interesting. And this is why I want you to know that you can't make yourself be born again. No matter what I say or anyone says, only God draw you unto him. You can read the Bible until the cows come home. You can pay tithes and offering until you're broke and homeless. You can give until you have no more to give and feel good about it. You can't make yourself be born again. No reading, no nothing can make that happen. As a matter of fact, you have a better chance of being born again of the Father by not reading so much. The less you know, the better chance you have. Because the more you read, the dumber you become, your ego is built. So I asked God to let me see myself. And one day he showed me I had this dark spirit on the inside. And it was like a wicked spirit. This kind of spirit that come in your room at night and hold you down on the bed. Anybody ever had that? Yeah, that kind of spirit. It comes through the door. Can you imagine that? And you'd be like, And then you say, in the name of Jesus, get off me. Some people say that. And so he let me see that. And then he allowed me to see, because at that point I just stopped the hooping and hollering, praying and all that, and speaking in tongues. I just shut up because I realized I could do nothing. And he allowed me to see that I resented my mother. Because prior to that, I thought I had love for my mother, really, because I felt a mother's love is so special, right? So I felt that for her, but it was hatred. It came from the hatred I had, the anger. And so, but what happened was, okay, now I need to do this experiment, if you don't mind. Can you come here? So, salvation is hard to explain, so I'm just going to give you I figure, after having a talk with Francisco yesterday and another friend, I figure I'll give an example of what it looked like. And so I'm sitting still, not asking anything. And so this is me. And I'm just one person, right? But at the time, I didn't know I was living in my head. I didn't know that thoughts were lies. And so God came, it's already in us too. Everything you're looking for is already there. The Holy Spirit is already there, Christ is already there, and God is already with us. It's called the kingdom of heaven within. But because most people are not seeking, or if they are seeking, they'll let someone steal it away from them just like that. If they mention, oh, I found God within, before they grow in it, a Bible thumper or someone will come along and steal it, so they don't really grow and they go back into darkness. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I was able to see. And what I mean by seeing, now you turn around. So this is the not me that was in me, in my imagination. But I couldn't see that. You understand that? This is not me that was in my head, in my thoughts, imagination. And so what happened was, God, it's like the light came on. And in that light, I was able to see that this really wasn't me. Because the light of God illuminated on the darkness of my mind. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. That's not me. And then in that very moment, he took anger away from my heart and replaced it with love. He gave me perfect love. And from that day forward, 32 years, Barney is 31, I've never had anger again. The spirit of anger was removed. But because I've been living in my head for so long, right? Now that I'm born of the Father, so my thoughts would still be talking, not my thoughts, but the thoughts would still tell me things, and I still would believe them, but I couldn't believe in them anymore. They would come and I would believe it, but I knew at that point it wasn't me. Without even knowing that I knew, I just knew it wasn't. But what was so powerful is that when he changed my heart, and I didn't know the depths of that until now. When he changed my heart from hate to love, he was changing everything about me. He was changing the vices, different things I was into, even though I was still giving to them sometimes. But he would not. Okay, you go away, Satan. So he was in that love, even though I would believe thoughts at time and I'll find myself doing it, like, remember I saying, don't worry about the smoking, it'll go away. He'll take that away from you. So if I did something like that, I couldn't even judge myself anymore. As a matter of fact, I forgot about judging myself because he had changed the heart from hate to love. And so those things were no longer the focus anymore because they should have never been the focus. But the preachers and everybody tell you that those vices are the focus that you should be thinking about. And you end up judging yourself for the things you do, thinking that that's the sin. Those are not the sins. The sin is of the heart. And so what happened was he took with the heart down here, not up here. What side is the heart on? Right here. I haven't heard my heart beating so long I forgot. It's in here. It's not even in the heart up here just pump blood, but the kingdom of heaven is in the belly, is in there, right? And so what would happen is that even though I was still growing and listening to thoughts, I knew I couldn't change anything. Because once he changed the heart, he allows you to see everything. And in seeing, you know you can't change anything. Of yourself, you can do nothing, right? So I just allowed myself to go through what I had to go through in life without judging myself. But I didn't realize it was because my heart had changed. I didn't know how deep that was. And then when he changed the heart, he changed it with his love. He gave you love. And in his love, all things are possible. There's nothing you cannot overcome. As a matter of fact, there's nothing you will not overcome if you just let it be. It's enough to see it, but just let it be, right? And the power of love is changing you. And what are you doing? You know the 10 Commandment things he gave us to keep? He is taking the vices away, all the stuff you're into, and replacing it with the 10 Commandments. Because it's all spiritual, there's nothing you can do about it. But he is causing you to live the 10 Commandments. You're growing into them, and one day you realize, wow, this is so cool. My whole inside is not the same anymore. You don't have the fear. You don't worry about anything. You're not jealous and envious, and it's just changing. You can't change anything, but the power and love of God will change it. Your only focus should be, and then I'll take your hand, then I got it in. Your only focus should be to sit still and know the Father. Go before the Father, and you do that by sitting still and just observing and not you. You don't have to do anything else. But you must stay with the prayer. When Paul said, of myself I can do nothing, and of myself I know nothing, so I had to realize it's not me, but the Spirit made a, that's what he meant about that. The Spirit made a home in him, right? It's not him. Likewise, the same thing with us. It's not you. The Spirit made a home where you became angry and you were turned away from him. And Satan became your dad, and that's the ego spirit that's in you. But if you focus on the heart and not the things that you're into, and no matter what kind of situation you're into, right? Do I feel like I'm dancing? No matter what the situation, you are to blame as adults. I don't care what they did to you or what's going on. The only way you're going to go free is you got to know, I'm to blame for this. I did this to myself. You may not have seen what you were getting into at the time. It may look like it was right or whatever, right? But you are to blame for it. To blame someone else is being in denial for yourself, and you're not going to be free. If you want to, and then once you see the responsibility, even if they did you wrong, what you think is wrong, you allow that to happen too. And you need to get to know yourself so you can understand, why is this happening to me? Then you overcome it. He will give you wisdom about it, and you'll be set free from it. And most importantly, you will never hate yourself or anyone else, no matter what people do or say about you, it wouldn't even matter. You don't even think about those things anymore, because the power of love, and it's in all of us. You already have it there. You're just not seeking the kingdom so you can come back home. But you must stay with the silent prayer. I've never missed one day from silent prayer in 32 years. And it's because I can't imagine going back into darkness And I don't know if that would happen or not, except that all over the world I've heard people say, oh, I did the silent prayer, then I stopped. Now I'm in my head, my life falling apart, right? But in reality, if they were born of God, their life is still fine. It's just that they went into their head again. But nothing changed. If you look around, all is well. But Satan makes you think that it is, and he calls you. Because the last thing that he wants you to do is to be still and come before the throne of the Father. Because when you be still, that's what's happening. You're going to the Father's grace, his mercy, and you're going to know what it is. It's mind-blowing. But it only comes through stillness. And so you got to pray. Prayer is of the heart, not of the head. It's of the heart. So when I ask you guys to bow your head, let's pray like they do in the churches, that came from the head. That came from somebody reading the Bible and just telling you to do that. But most people don't question it. Because they'll tell you, don't even question it. Don't question God. Yes, you do. He wants you to question. How else are you going to find out? What's wrong with me? How come I can't overcome? He'll show you. So let them preachers say you can't. The Father loves you, and he doesn't care what your question is, no matter how dumb it is. He's okay with it. And so love is of the Father. It's come from above, through Christ, through the man, through the woman, and children. And there is no feeling at all about it. Zero feeling. It's a light unto your feet. It is ability to see and overcome without even trying. It is grace is everything. But you have to, and it will kill the ego, the not you, which is Satan's nature in us, right? He would kill that. He would just take that away from you. Once he changed that heart from hate to love, it's amazing. Everything else is fine. So don't focus on what you're into. Try not to do your little stuff, right? But don't judge yourself. The focus is on the heart. Be still and know the Father. Do the silent prayer. He's renewing your mind. He's taking away your anger, your fear, your doubts, your worries, your insecurities, all the other those things you're feeling. And any time that you are offended by someone else, you get mad at someone, like the vaccinated people, the unvaccinated people should not even get mad at the vaccinated people because they don't know, they know not what they do. Their whole world is a cult. That's why I want to say that. If that's what a cult leader is, the whole world's a cult because the whole world is hypnotized. They're in a fallen state and don't know it. And so they can put fear in you. They can take away your stuff, they say, and make you do whatever, right? But if you had no fear, you wouldn't worry about those things because your relationship is no longer with people, places, and things. It's with God only, your Father. Isn't that amazing? So just relax. And you hearing this from a black man who's slow. When I think about my life, it's mind-blowing. And it's not because of what I have, the material things, it's because of the peace that I have. And the things that I've been able to overcome and endure, and it's amazing. And that's how he loves us. God loves us. Your Father loves you. And don't just see him as God. Because if you see him as God, you don't see him as your Father. He is God, but he's your Father. And the Father would take care of his children. Just like Satan take care of you. He'll destroy you. That makes sense a little bit? Stay with the prayer and just observe the thoughts. And when you get in one, just know you're in a thought. Because you're growing like a baby. You're growing, so don't judge yourself. Stay with the prayer, let it pass. And eventually they get further and further away from you. And it's like life is amazing. It's all spiritual. There's nothing you can do. Anyone who has emotions, they have an ego, which is the nature of Satan. And it's based on everything that you feel. God is a dispassionate God. Satan is a passionate God. It's all based on how you feel. All right? Amazing. Don't try to figure out love. It's nothing that you can figure out. You grow in it. His ways and the way he is far away from what you can ever imagine. You can't even imagine his way. You have to live it. You become it. You grow into it. And so don't try to figure it out. It's enough to know that you don't know. He would take care of it. Because anyone who thinks that they know, then Satan is your daddy. You have to grow into it. You will be born again if you're seeking, and you will find and you will start to live. It'll happen. Once you're born of the Father, you cannot be unborn. All right? So just relax. And if somebody say things about you, true or not, that you did it, right? Wish them well. Because they're doing this about you because they have no love. They're jealous, they're envious, they're angry. Because people who love one another, we would never do that to each other. It would be no way. It wouldn't even be in your nature to even put down your enemy. That's what we're talking about, a friend. It wouldn't be in your nature. It wouldn't be a part of who you are. All right? Anybody disagree with that? All thoughts are all lies all the time. There's never a true thought. You could have to go to the bathroom to do number one. And the thought say, oh, wait a little later. Or the thought say, oh, you need to go now. And now you feel like you got to go now. You get involved with everything. Because Satan is trying to deceive you. He doesn't want to lose you. And he control you by deceiving you. And you know what I want now? I had wanted to be a son of God. When I was growing up, I'm like, what is it like to live on earth as a son of God? I used to ask myself that and ask God as a kid. I now know. Now I want to know, what is it like to doubt every thought all the time? I want nothing but faith. I want faith that no matter what happens, I'm unmoved. And I believe it's possible. Because if you can doubt every thought, you can't help but have faith. There's nothing left but faith in God. If you can doubt every thought, you have faith. Adam and Eve believed it to a lie. All we have to do is believe out of it by doubting it. Don't believe it. And you have faith. It's not a feeling. The way you overcome opinion about yourself, observe every thought. Don't hold on to any thought. It's impossible to have an opinion about yourself if you don't believe thoughts. Because the opinions that you have about yourself and other people, they're not coming from you. You're being influenced. And you think it's your own because you've identified with it. Isn't that amazing? So if you're drunk, be a drunk a little longer. Just don't judge yourself for being a drunk. If you're robbing a bank, if you're going out today and rob a bank, try not to rob it. Just know Satan's talking to you. But if you gotta rob it, don't judge yourself. Just rob it. Oh, this is fun. I don't want to be robbing this bank, but this is fun. Be good at the rob. But don't judge yourself. And seek the kingdom, and you will over. One day you'll go to rob the bank, you just won't be able to rob it. Oh, I don't feel like robbing no bank. Really, it would just be gone. Christ said, pray and watch. Do the silent prayer and watch the thoughts. And you're going to see the world around you as well. You can see the whole world. People can't deceive you. And if they deceive you, it'll only be for a minute. You'll see it. Because the real person will come out eventually. But do the silent prayer. Give it a try. Okay. Silent prayer, that video. And do your own little thing too. And then be still and know the Father. And I'm telling you, he'll take that emotion away from you, and you will have great love. And it won't be based on any feelings or anything like that. And he will take care of you.